So, folks, as you know, Thanksgiving is upon us. And I think that we've gotten this thing twisted. Gotten it very, very twisted. And the story, the history of it, and you know, I've been on this program. We have we're big on truth here. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So our source here is Wikipedia, history.com, and NewYorkTimes.com. Have some TNT. Thanksgiving truth. So the holiday season is here, and it's Thanksgiving's turn. Preparing for and planning to spend time, enjoy food, and drink with our families is an essential part. Can we agree there? However, it's important to know exactly what we are being partakers of. I'm not against the practice of food and family, among other things. No. But we should make the truth a part of the holiday. Atonement and appreciation as a nation is vital. The story of the first Thanksgiving, as most Americans have been taught it or remember it, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans gathered together, the famous feast, the turkey, the stuffing, the horn of plenty, is not exactly accurate. Now, did you know that many Native Americans do not celebrate the coming of the Pilgrims and other European settlers? To them, Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of their people, the theft of their lands, and the relentless assault on their cultures. They call it National Day of Mourning. Do you blame them? Can you blame them? Let's go a bit further. The Wampanoags, who are the, quote, Indians in this tale, have long contended that Thanksgiving myth sugarcoats the viciousness, the vileness of colonial history for Native people. It does. And you know it. You feel it. The land was occupied and was full of villages, roads, cornfields, monuments, cemeteries, and forests cleared of underbush. Generations of Native people had made it that way with the expectation of passing along their land to their descendants. You can understand that, right? Contrary to the myth, the Pilgrim-Wampanoag encounter was no first contact meeting. Oh no. Rather, it followed a string of bloody episodes stemming from 1524 in which European explorers enslaved coastal Wampanoags to be sold overseas or to be trained as interpreters and guides. Did you know that? The Wampanoags reached out with the olive branch to the Pilgrims, not only despite the violent history, but also partly because of it. Side note, it's been taught that the Pilgrims came because they were seeking religious freedom. The Pilgrims had religious freedom in Holland already. They came to make money. Plain, simple, straight like that. Also, the Pilgrims never called themselves Pilgrims. They were separatists. The term Pilgrims did not surface until around 1880. Now, this information that we've laid out, I was not taught this in school, in grammar school, high school, college. No. They told me about the first feast. It was all hugs and love. I later on learned about, because of Disney, right, Pocahontas. And I go, whoa, okay, this is nice, till you look into the story, the history of it. See, part of the bloody episodes, these settlers came on the coast, and as soon as they were visible, the quote, Indian, right, the red man, right, they were foreigners to them. Immediately with the arrows. We don't know them. We don't trust them. No. See, there was a war. And how the film Pocahontas comes about is that John Smith, huh? So they use her to weaken and have the Native Americans drop their guard. So it was manipulation and a lot of just underhandedness. Now, Thanksgiving today is a wonderful thing. What it has become. But the history of it is very red and dark and bloody and muddy and violent. Much like the other holidays and sacred days in this country. Now, this isn't the talk. This isn't the holiday season pep rally chant speech that you probably want to even hear. Nonetheless, it is the truth. By spreading truth, we can heal. The trauma has to stop. Then you can heal. But these are things, in order for us to move forward as a nation, we're going to need to have these talks. We're going to need this energy. We're going to need each other. We're going to need to be willing to go there, that uncomfortable place, to emerge united. I mean, as the name of the country suggests, right? United States of America. And we have presidents, well, no, one in particular, right, who's on the way out, hollering about patriotism and teaching history of this great nation in schools properly to children, indoctrinating them to whatever else, more falsehoods. No, we are not in support of that. See, we have to remain raw with this, because being passive has gotten us where we are now, present day. So, what also is not conveyed with traditional Thanksgiving first feast talk, the Pilgrims, the European settlers, also brought pestilence and disease with them. Smallpox, muskets, right? So a lot of lives were lost because of this journey, this heist, as it were. The land was occupied. It's thievery. But America knows this, which is why Native Americans, see, they got their reparations. You have them on, you look at them as casinos, preserved land, reservations, right? And every year there's a bill, they get money. And they get out of having to pay taxes. So there is some acknowledgement and some atonement there. But we have to understand that the Native American, every year, because of what happened, hurts behind this. Now, we should always and continue to gather with family and friends and loved ones, people that you care about and that care about you. We're not taking away from that. But by sharing and understanding the nature and the truth of the first Thanksgiving hopefully will enrich and strengthen those relationships that you have. You will begin to covet, you begin to value and appreciate each other, respect each other, love each other, as well as yourself. Now, keep it real. Did you know the full story of Thanksgiving? Did you choose to ignore some holes in the story? Did you believe it at face value? There's no wrong answer here. As long as it's the truth. It's okay. But now that we've discussed it, we've fanned this out. What do we do with it now? We have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to share. Because this is a holistic channel, holistic show, broadcast. What do you do with it? Now, we're going to still continue on Thursday to have that turkey and watch another sad football game, right? But we gather. But just remember this year and truly think about what you're thankful for and appreciative of. Who's around you? Who's not around you? And understand and remember why we gather. Now, it's going to be tough this year, tougher than any other year. And that is to do with this virus and lockdown measures. Our source here is fox2detroit.com. Now, for the next 3 weeks, life in Michigan will be extremely altered as October and November's COVID-19 caseload continued climbing at an unprecedented rate. State health officials refused partial lockdown measures. A few sectors of Michigan's economy and lifestyle were spared from restrictions, limits on gatherings, closures of indoor dining, remote-only learning in high school, and an end to organized sports were among several of the changes that Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced on Sunday. We cannot control the fact we're seeing a surge in cases. We can control how we combat our common enemy. This is what she said during a virtual press conference. Now, there are key differences between the lockdown first enacted in March and in the 3-week lockdowns this month, which began on November 18th. So health experts and hospital CEOs cited small and medium-sized gatherings as one of the primary reasons COVID-19 is rising. So indoors will be limited to 10 people, while gathering outdoors will shrink to 25. Now, this is in Michigan. More than 2/3 of COVID-19 cases identified in school outbreaks are in the high schools. So the state is suspending in-person schooling for grades 9 through 12, yet allowing in-person schooling to continue from K to 8th grade. Now, this is in Michigan. And Michigan started it off this week, but you just had New York close schools, suspend in-person learning. See, a few weeks back, we discussed lockdown 2.0, and Germany and France were spearheading that. So it is here, and it's moving slowly across the country. Don't get me wrong. This is a great thing, right? It's a good thing. If it were March. You see, at this stage, it's very late in the game. It wasn't handled properly, this pandemic, this virus. It wasn't handled properly at all. But now, it feels like we are playing catch up. And who's the boss? Because it's not a national mandate. And that doesn't really feel secure because it's not national. It's not a unified front. Much like in all the other laws and ordinances in this country, it's state driven. So you can, each state has their own constitution, from gun laws to domestic violence to shoplifting. Like, it's all different. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. And you have the dueling of de Blasio in New York, and then Cuomo, the governor of New York, like bumping heads, and it's chaos on all fronts. I don't know where you are listening to this or watching this. How is the lockdown situation? How is COVID numbers? Do you watch that stuff? Do you pay attention to it? Are you concerned about a full-on lockdown for 4 to 6 weeks? You can't go anywhere but to the food store? Not even to work? I'm concerned. If we are at this stage now about the COVID fatigue and stay-at-home measures, I mean, the front line is, we got to be on the sixth string now, right? Starters are out. It's wearing on everyone. And you have people, health officials like Anthony Fauci, who's saying the cavalry is coming, meaning vaccines and treatment. And at first, it seemed like some pie in the sky. Like, what are you talking about, homie? This is scary stuff here. This is the gooch. An invisible bully. This is the gooch. And then 3 weeks later, after he says that, we get Moderna. We get Pfizer. So let's talk about Moderna for a little bit. Sources, NewYorkTimes.com, NewYorkTimes.com. So on Monday, Moderna, who is based out of Massachusetts, reported very promising preliminary results from its vaccine trial, coming just a week after similar news from Pfizer and BioNTech. The announcement immediately gave the stock market a fresh jolt. It offered more hope that there's going to be a way out of the pandemic. Now, Pfizer, like Pfizer, Moderna released only early data from their trial. There's more work to be done before they'll know if the vaccine really is safe and effective. But they're bolstering, the 94.5% effective rate, though. And even if Moderna's vaccine gets the green light from the FDA, Food and Drug, it's weird to have those two things together, food and drug. It will take months to reach widespread distribution. So in the meantime, the United States is suffering devastating explosion of new cases. Here's where things stand right now with the development of the vaccine. Scientists randomly assigned volunteers to get either the Moderna vaccine or a placebo, which is like a sugar pill, ain't nothing, right? The mental. The trial was blind, meaning that neither the volunteers nor the people running the trial knew what they got. Now, over time, some of the volunteers got sick with COVID-19. To get preliminary sense of how the trial was going, an independent board of experts took a look at the first 95 participants who got sick. 90 of them had received the placebo, and only 5 had been given the vaccine. Based on the data, the board estimates that's where they get the 94.5% effective rate. That's how they get it. So, is this going to be an answer to the pandemic? In the short term, no. The soonest that a coronavirus vaccine could possibly become widely available would be in the spring. But if effective vaccines do indeed become available and most people get them, the pandemic could drastically shrink. Now, if the infection rate drops and become less and less, life could gradually return back to, I can't even say normal, because just before COVID, we can get back to that gradually. But you have all these vaccine companies and vaccines coming up, producing numbers and a vaccine serum quickly. And that's alarming. Nothing, and then, 5 of you. Just we got the key, we got the code, we cracked it. In the shortest amount of time ever in the history of vaccines. But this is hopeful. I mean, when it does become available, it's going to be given to frontline essential workers first, right? And eventually it'll make it to everybody else. But essential workers and, those high risk, older people. But really, how safe is this? We have to look at that. how safe is it? I'm very leery about the vaccine. I've been leery about the virus. Not saying that it ain't real. I respect data. I respect knowledge, but I also respect logic. And sometimes logic isn't in the equation. When you put it in the equation, things don't add up. But we have to keep an eye on this. I mean, this is what everyone's thinking, everyone's talking about on the planet. There has never been in history something this polarizing be just the topic of discussion in all circles or most circles. Because there'll be somebody listening to this going, I don't talk about it. Well, you're the exception. Excuse me. Pardon me. But most people think about it. Most people discuss it. If it's not the vaccine, you talking about the virus, though. You know, I mean, this is so big. You know, even law firms are cashing in on the attention. You know, people, workman's comp, and you catch it at work. Is your employer liable? You know, that kind of a thing. So it's made its way into court in a major way. And, you know, court is a serious, when you go to court, it's a serious thing. Because it's no longer that is between you and the person. That is now third party, which is the state or the federal government, right? So much like that, we had this week Twitter and Facebook were in court as well. Sources, theguardian.com. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg were in court this week. Why? Well, in October, they were subpoenaed to appear at Tuesday's hearing with the Senate Judiciary Committee. This hearing is to review how the two platforms handled the 2020 election. Censorship is the charge. Biased censorship, to be exact. So this particular hearing was called in response to the company's handling of a New York Post article about Joe Biden. Did you know this? So when the story was published in October, Twitter took unprecedented steps to limit its circulation, blocking users from posting links or pictures of the report. At the time, Twitter said the measures were taken due to the origins of the materials included in the article, which were allegedly pulled from a computer that had been left by Hunter Biden at a Delaware computer repair shop in April 2019. So according to Twitter's policies, it prohibits directly distributing content obtained through hacking that contains private information. Here's where it gets, finicky. Twitter later walked back its response, tweeting that the communications around the actions on the article was not great. Thanks a lot. That's what they got to say about that. Also changing hacked materials policy in response to the backlash. So Facebook took a less aggressive stance, placing some limitations on the article due to questions about its truth. Now, I should note that Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham were doing the cross-examining here. Fine gentlemen, you know. Fine Republican gentlemen. So here are some points. Lawmakers want to modify the Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Law. Now, this law has provided tech companies with legal protections for what users post on the platform. Now, incentivize social media platforms to come up with standards that are transparent, which is a strategy modeled by the Earn It Act. And also, we have civil rights groups have warned that the Earn It Act could negatively affect free speech protections and create chilling effects online. It could also enable the government to break encryption to monitor internal messaging and erode privacy. So, I don't know if you noticed it or not. I have across my timeline on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. This 2020 election was all over it. You couldn't block it. Hide this ad. Remove this notification. You couldn't get away from it. And this is a major thing for these platforms, these tech platforms, let's call them what they are. When you hear about Silicon Valley, yeah, this right here, especially these two, Twitch, all of that. You couldn't get away from it. And censorship here, why it's important is Facebook and Twitter, because of their policies and how they smoke and mirrored it, controlled what you could see and what you could post and what you couldn't. Doesn't mean it's factual or not yet. Just they're in control of what you can see, what you can post, and then on the other side, you, the viewer, what you can view, what makes it through onto your timeline. What's featured is the language. It's important that we protect privacy. We live in a time that privacy is compromised on a minute basis, right? Where now, even when you go on websites, it'll tell you after you click and say you agree to using the cookies, right? That this website uses a third-party company that will not or will use your data. Do you accept? Like all of that. When you just want to look at some shoes, right? So, privacy is a constant, is on assault. It's invasion. But this was exposed here with Twitter and Facebook. To me, they abused their privilege of their users, their customers. And it was manipulation, because if they felt if they felt that it lined up with the narrative that they were pushing, what they believed their core values, I guess, or I don't know, whatever political agenda they had, they pushed it through. Now, this is fine because it's their platform on the surface. But when you begin to use that influence and that exercise that a level of power that you have over the platform, because it is your platform, about political things, when you do that, it's no longer you just doing that because you can. This is security, it's censorship. It does break some constitutional laws, even though we need to revisit. America needs to look at those, because everything is written by the founding fathers. That's a long time ago. There was no internet then, no cell phone then. Nike wasn't out then, right? The whole system, blow it up, start over from today's standard of living, today's mindset, today. And I don't know if you saw the video, because there's a video footage of these gentlemen sitting in court, virtual court. They don't look bothered. It's almost like, to them, it ain't no big deal. It is a big deal when you are dealing with people, their humanity. When you see people as dollar signs dollar signs. There's nothing else. Dollar signs, money, gain. And don't see them as people. You've lost it, homie. You're disconnected now. There's an old cliche term people used to always say, oh, she's so down to earth. He's so down to earth. They were saying grounded and connected, but it became such a cliche thing that people ran away from. And then I guess we became actually disconnected more and more, to the point now where it's you just whatever my need is, that's what I see you as. Sort of like, you remember the cartoon, I believe it was a Looney Tunes cartoon, Hamburger Hot Dog, where the two guys, one heavier guy and a skinny, wiry gentleman, were on this island and deserted. There's no way they're getting off. And they start having these mirages looking at each other. So the skinny one is looking at the larger one. He looks like a hot dog to him, or a hamburger, excuse me. And then the other one looks like, the skinny one's looking like a hot dog. So they chasing each other, but it's kind of how these corporations, and not even on that level, it's just sometimes maybe your neighbor looks at you that way. Some of your coworkers look at you we need to get connected and united. But be careful when you lose your humanity. I mean, we talked about it. I had a little rant last week about PSE&G. No, your job, even this program here, is not more important than your needs, though. We respect each other's needs. And then we can move forward. Everyone can be thriving and healthy, holistically, if we did that. We need to get back to that. We started there. There was a time where that was true. Albeit it was a very, very long time ago. But it was true. But how do you feel about Facebook and Twitter manipulating you if you are a user of those two platforms? uh, under the guise that, they are doing this for truth, right? But you find out it's really not. It's control. If they can do that with an election, what else are we being blocked from or forced to see? How you feel about that? Does it make you want to continue to use those platforms? No big deal? It makes me second guess some things. But we'll see how it plays out. But 90% of the population on the planet uses those two platforms. So, in more legal news, the last straws. NBCnews.com is the source. Let's talk about it. Your man 4-5. So the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has thrown out one of the Trump campaign's longest running post-election complaints. Tuesday, this happened, ruling that officials in Philadelphia did not violate state law by maintaining at least 15 feet of separation between observers and workers counting ballots. I could stop right there. He keeps taking L's, man. It's over. Now, the ruling is likely to undercut Trump's federal case where Rudy Giuliani, that clown, argued on behalf of President Donald Trump's efforts to contest the election results in Philadelphia. Now, Republican observers said that they were kept so far back behind a waist-high fence that they couldn't see any of the details on ballot envelopes or reach any conclusions about whether vote counting procedures were correctly followed. Here we go. So the Trump campaign sued a state appeals court said that the observers were not given enough access. It ordered the county to move the fence closer to the counting tables. Now, mind you, this is all he lost. It's over, right? Okay. But the state Supreme Court reversed the ruling by a vote of 5-2, saying Pennsylvania law requires only that observers must be allowed in the room where ballots are counted, but does not set a minimum distance between them and the counting tables. The legislature left it up to county election boards to make these decisions. This is according to the court. Let me read that again to you. So Pennsylvania law requires only that observers must be allowed in the room where the ballots are counted. But there's no minimum distance between them and the counting table set. Sounds like game, set, match. You lost. There's no more legal loopholes. You're out. At this point, you're just wasting our money and our time and attention. Now the courts are fed up with you. Take the L, homie. And that Giuliani, what is going on with him? Linking with him, though, siding with him, having him on your team, just doesn't look good either. I trust Trump more than I trust Giuliani. And I don't trust Trump. When you don't tell the truth, I can't. You can't. You don't. That's why he's out. why he's out. So this is just one of many more. And then you have what other state was that? Georgia did a recount. They claim it was by hand, but you didn't recount 5 million votes. So, yeah, come on, by hand like that. You rescanned them, and he lost there too. And it added a few more votes for Trump, but it didn't. The overall movement of the election, the overall results, still ended up being 306 to 232. Or some variation, a couple of, numbers, we're talking about single digit movement, over, under. You're lost. Give it up. It's time. Just give Biden and his transition team the power, the transition of power. Just do it. Give them the briefings, all of that, and get that U-Haul, that moving truck, and get on out of there. It's time. FNXFit.com. Got greens? Rebalance with this Super Greens blend. Available in Tropical Blast, Unicorn Punch, Strawberry Dragon Fruit. Promo code is Moonbeam for 15% off your order. Again, go to FNXFit.com. PhD murder. This is a bizarre one. Source here is NBCChicago.com. A PhD student at the University of Illinois, Chicago, who works at the University of Notre Dame, was charged with murder in the death of her ex-boyfriend in Washington, D.C. That's a lot of jet setting in, private planes, huh? Chicago, the Notre Dame, to D.C. It was just a lot. We'll get into it. Let's do it. So this is all according to police and court documents. Nijinsky Latassa Dix, D-I-X, 37 of Jacksonville, Florida. So that's her name. Nijinsky Latassa Dix. She was arrested and charged with second-degree murder while armed, possession of unregistered ammunition, and possession of an unregistered firearm by the Metropolitan PD. How did it happen? I'll tell you. So police officers responded to shots fired call and entered an apartment where they found a male. Terry Hickman, 44, he had been shot dead. Now, according to court documents, when officers arrived at the apartment, they saw the defendant, Latassa Dix, right, kneeling at the victim's feet with her right hand raised and her left hand between her legs. Now, officers noticed that the defendant was holding a handgun and asked her to drop the weapon, and at that point, she complied. While on the scene, officers heard a voice, saw that a cell phone was connected to a call on speakerphone. It was her mother. She said that, so police talked to the mom. He pushed me and I shot him. She was then taken to the hospital for a health assessment as protocols what they normally do. The medical staff stated that there was a cut on her lower lip, but the reason, the cause was unclear. Now, the doctor that did the exam said that during the exam, Dix, 37, reported back pain And there was several periods of time that she blacked out. Loss of memory, I don't know, all of that. But she didn't show any physical signs of trauma, or nothing indicated that she's been assaulted, right? So police do their job and they talk to multiple witnesses, several different accounts there. It gets a little, But when they talk to her, they show her a photograph of Hickman. She begins to cry and repeatedly saying, "Get it away from me. Please, please, you don't understand. You don't do people you love like that. That's not love," right? That's what she's saying, screaming at the police. One of the witnesses that detectives talked to said that the woman was stalking Hickman and that she was from out of state, but somehow found out where he resided. This is according to the court findings. Now, this is for me, the most interesting part of the account, the story, the case right here. Dix and Hickman had only been dating for 3 months. Yes. 3 months. And it was long distance, right? But is this where we are in 2020? Shoot him. Shoot him. Kill him. You don't like it? Shoot him. You don't do people you love like that? That's not love? I don't want that. He can't do people like that. You don't do people you love like that? I'm sorry? Well, that sounds like more than he pushed you. But was that push physical? Was that a physical push? Did he cheat on you and push you to the edge to shoot him and kill him? Like, it's very vague there. But she can't look at his photo. A PhD student. But that's alarming, pardon me, respectfully, psychotic behavior though. You just kill him? And she shoots him. And then, I don't know, is she on the phone with her mother when she does it? Or the first person she called was her mother? And what was that conversation like? Strange. But in 2020, this is what we doing. Kill him. This is happening across the country. I don't have the numbers on it, like compared to other years, and I don't know. But we've talked in, lockdown measures, the uncertainty of things, vaccine questions. These are not excuses. These are reasons for the behavior, though. Domestic violence is up. Crime is up. Drinking and drug use is up. They're sipping lean, taking opioids, and apparently shooting people because you can't do people you love like that. it ain't enough information here for me to, like, what? I still, only thing I'm sure of is that this guy is dead. Hickman. What? Terry is gone. So, because of allegedly whatever he did to push her and do her wrong, she was willing, it was enough, she was willing to throw away her PhD, her path to the PhD, and her job, her employment. It was enough. Kill him. She's willing to go there with that. But not really if you talking about you blacking out and you can't look at the photo. You can't face what you did. No, it's horrible. So we know what's next though, right? You know it. Pleading insanity. She's unfit to go to trial. That's, you know, that's what's next. Now, if she truly has had a mental or emotional breakdown, by all means, get her some help to the max. But she still needs to be held accountable for the crime, especially if this unfolded and happened the way that it's described here. So, but that's what we're doing in 2020 is we deal with our issues, kill them. And mind you, this was a 3-month long relationship that ended in May. So we want to dispel some myths. This is kind of the myth show tonight. And all of this, they're still in the election. It was a landslide, electoral votes, the popular vote, got me to thinking, well, the Electoral College is a mess. It's been a mess, but this election, this cycle has exposed it to the max, exposed it more than ever before. So our source here is businessinsider.com. Electoral College. What is it? How it works. So in the United States, Americans don't directly elect the president. Did you know that? And contrary to popular belief, there is no constitutional right to vote for the president. The Electoral College is a system that was devised in the 18th century by the founders of the United States. So here's a little rundown. So on November 6th, Joe Biden was projected president-elect and had won the Electoral College and defeated President Trump. But the results aren't official until every state fully certifies its president election results, which occurs on a different timeline in every state. So after certification, the presidential electors selected by every state's voters will vote in each state and the District of Columbia on December 14th. So all states except for Maine and Nebraska use a winner-take-all system in which the candidate who wins the most votes, popular vote, earns all the state's electoral college votes. This system has resulted in some presidential elections like the ones in 2000 and 2016, in which the winner of the popular vote loses the Electoral College, sparking criticism that the Electoral College is fundamentally undemocratic and cheapens the experience with voters. I agree. So there is a date that you should know. December 8th, 2020. This is the safe harbor deadline. So this provides that if the election results are contested in any state, and if the state prior to election day has enacted procedures to settle controversies or contests over electors or electoral votes, and if the procedures have been applied, the results have been determined 6 days before the electors meeting, then the results are considered to be conclusive. All that means is if there's some objections to it, to the count, you have until this day, December 8th, to file all your motions and all of your legal proceedings about it regarding your objection, which Trump has done. His issue is he keeps getting denied and dismissed, right? So then, December 14th. December 14th, the Electoral College votes. So, technically speaking, that is when Joe Biden will become officially the president. Right now, he's projected the president. That's just the facts. But before this election, I didn't know how that worked. I knew it was screwy and a little weird, and this has been going on for every election. But we didn't know. Or I should say we didn't know. I didn't know. So the deadline for the safe harbor is December 8th. But the date that everybody wants, the one that you want, is December 14th. That's when the Electoral College votes for the president. So the American people vote for the electoral vote. But the Electoral College votes for the president. That's the fact to take away from that. Very interesting. The date is fast approaching, though. Now, I want to switch gears. And I want to play you something.
This war, race war that is coming upon the head of the white man is something that he is bringing down upon himself. The entire country is on the verge of erupting into racial violence and bloodshed. Simply because 20 million ex-slaves are demanding freedom, justice, and equality here in America from their former slave master. 20 million so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, seeking human dignity, seeking human rights, seeking the right to live in dignity as a human being. And rather than give genuine respect and recognition to your cry for human rights, the American white man answers your nonviolence with violence. He answers your prayers and your freedom songs with false promises, deceitful maneuvers, and outright bloodshed.
Now that was Malcolm X, if you didn't know. And he takes us into the topic here. Code word: minority. So the source here is dictionary.com, Britannica.com, and lumenlearning.com. So minority. You ever thought about what it means, the definition, and then what it means in society terms? The smaller number or part, especially a number that is less than half the whole number. Definition 2. The state or period of being under the age of full legal responsibility. So what does it mean to be minority? Minority, a culturally, ethically, religiously, or racially distinct group that coexists with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. As the term is used in the social sciences, this is the chief defining characteristic of a minority group. As such, minority status does not necessarily correlate to population. So, according to this definition, this would include black people, brown people, men, women, Jews, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, right? And even pet owners, according to this definition of the word. So let's examine the characteristics of a minority group. I'm going somewhere. So according to Charles Wagley and Marvin Harris, back in 1958, a minority group is distinguished by 5 characteristics: unequal treatment and less power over their lives, distinguishing physical or cultural traits like skin color or language, involuntary membership in the group, awareness of subordination, high rate of in-group marriage. Now, some may disagree with that until we get to number 5, right? High rate of in-group marriage. Well, most people, when they get married, let's just talk about that one. Whatever your race or background is, most of the time, you're conditioned to marry the same. It's just how it is, how it's been. It's not true for all, but as a majority, right? As a whole, that's the one that rings everybody bell. But all of this unequal treatment and less power over their lives, yeah. Black people, women, people with disabilities, right? Physical or cultural traits like skin color or language. Jews, right? Brown people. They check these boxes off. Okay, so they're a minority group, right? Can we agree? So let's proceed, because this leads me to another word: dominant. aka majority, right? Well, I noticed all of these groups, there's a group that's not in there. And that would be white, right? So minority of the white majority. White majority would be society. There's some glaring things about this minority thing. Black people are viewed as subordinate and immature to responsibility. So basically, the children in this American social structure, right? See, this would explain the treatment of black people in this country, in America. This is the thought process. So if you put all of the laws, all of the treatment, how you get treated at Walmart, how you treated down at the check cashing spot at the bank, you're getting racially profiled in Walmart. The court system, because this is behind all of the thinking. Like when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, this was a part of their psyche. This was a part of their thinking. We are the majority. When it was shared with everybody, the majority had to do with numbers. That was the premise. You got to watch their smiles. That was the premise. No, we find out it doesn't correlate necessarily with numbers. Correlates with a status. You see, when you break it down this way, this would explain why America refuses to wipe her face. This is it. Subordinate and immature. To responsibility, because the definition said the state or period of being under the full or legal responsibility. The age, being under the age of full legal responsibility. And these groups that I named, they don't even see themselves for the most part as minorities. Because minority in society is code word for black. But according to definition, even pet owners are a minority. But this explains it further to me. As a black man, I'm viewed as subordinate. I'm viewed as all of these things. And according to Charles and Marvin, my condition of being black in America has me falling in one of these 5 categories, or all of them, all 5 of these. The standout one is number 4. The awareness of subordination. Woo. I'm aware of it. I don't subscribe to it though. So how do you get out of a system that you don't subscribe to? Similarly to number 3. See, that's it. It's built in there. Involuntary membership in the group. And it has to be a minority. I don't view myself as a minority. How about you? Do you fit in one of these categories? Do you fit in one of those groups? How you feel about being labeled or called a minority? And let's be clear, we're being called that by the dominant group, which is white. The white man. So America's a white man's world. It's we're talking, let's keep it real. I will never fit into a white man's society. With this kind of thinking, see, if we confront this, be forced to admit it, and then we can choose how we move forward. It's either, inclusion, fully integration, like everybody's one, or you're going to have to divide up the country. But that's why we started with Malcolm. It's all built in to have a race war that nobody else wants but the dominant group, the white. Nobody else is perpetuating that. Everyone else is reactive to that. That's why we started there. You're causing this to happen. You make these conditions as justification. It's just like all these stories and the accounts of black men being lynched. And the Ku Klux Klan still running around here in those white sheets. The Proud Boys are the new Klan. There's a lot of hate for no reason. No outside force has done that. That's internal. It's deep. You chose to want to have slavery. You chose to hate. And then to not face that hate, that the source of it, you project and displace those feelings and put them on others. It helps you to continue to hate. I mean, let's take a look at sugar and slavery. Sources, Vice and New York Times. So for centuries, sugar drove the world's economy. It helped empires get super filthy rich and wealthy. But it's not an all glitters and gold story. No, there's another side, lesser known, far less discussed side. Dirty business. The sugar that saturates the American diet has a barbaric history as the white gold, as it was called, that fueled slavery. So Domino sugar. You got to talk about it. You know Domino sugar. You got something in your cabinet now. Check the pantry is there. That yellow box is there. It is North America's largest sugar refinery, making nearly 2 billion pounds of sugar and sugar products annually. Did you know that? So for thousands of years, cane was a heavy crop that had to be cut by hand and immediately ground to release the juice inside, or it would spoil within a day or two. So even before harvest time, rows had to be dug, stalks planted, and plentiful wood chopped as fuel for boiling the liquid and reducing it to crystals and molasses. Time-consuming, labor-intensive work. From the earliest traces of cane, sugar was locally consumed and remained little more than an exotic spice, medicinal glaze, or sweetener for elite, the finest of the finest palates, right? Now, it was the introduction of sugar slavery in the New World that changed everything. It changed the game. So the true age of sugar had begun, and it was doing more to reshape the world than any ruler, empire, or war had ever done. This is according to Mark Aronson and Marina Buddos, who write in their 2010 book, Sugar Changed the World. So over the 4 centuries that follow Columbus's arrival on the mainlands of Central and South America and Mexico, Guyana, Brazil, as well as on the sugar islands of the West Indies. You had Cuba, Barbados, Jamaica. Countless indigenous lives were destroyed and nearly 11 million Africans were enslaved, just counting those who survived the Middle Passage. See, this is part of it that they don't teach you. So we're gonna keep pressing this about the true nature of these accounts, these stories. We taking the fable out of it. We're gonna get to it. So sugar, aka white gold, drove trade in goods and people, fueled the wealth of European nations, and for the British in particular, Bristol, right, shored up the financing of their North American colonies. That's where it connects. There was direct trade among the colonies and between the colonies and Europe, but much of the Atlantic trade was triangular. You know the triangle trade. So enslaved people, Africa, sugar from the West Indies and Brazil, money and manufacturing from Europe. That's it in a nutshell. There's another book that was released in 1999. Walter Johnson, Harvard historian Walter Johnson, Soul by Soul, Life Inside the Antebellum Slave Market. So he writes in that book, people were traded along the bottom of the triangle. Profits would stick at the top. Sort of similar how Phil Jackson won all those championships with Mike and then Kobe with the triangle offense. Same thought there, same practice there. But I digress. Here we go. So in 1795, there was a New Orleans sugar planter granulated the first sugar crystals in Louisiana Territory. With sugar being processed locally, plantations exploded up and down both banks of the Mississippi River. So to achieve the highest efficiency, as in the round-the-clock Domino refinery today, sugar houses operated night and day. On cane plantations in sugar time, there is no distinction as to the days of the week. Fatigue might mean losing an arm to the grinding rollers or being whipped for failing to keep up. resistance was often met with sadistic cruelty. I don't want to get too graphic, but we know that the slave masters and slave drivers were nasty people, nasty white people, white men. It is what it is, or was what it was. And just not to be too graphic, but I want to give you just a picture of this. So as punishment for not being able to keep up with this ridiculous schedule, right? They had boxes that they would put slaves in that had nails and needles poked in them in such a way that the person couldn't move. If you did move, you got poked and stuck. Like, you know how sick you got to be just to think that up, dream that up, cook that up, devise that, and then execute that and carry that out on another human being? Nasty business. But just something simple as sugar. We take that for granted. Every day. It's in just about everything though. From lip gloss to shampoo, it's sugar's in it. Domino Sugar is dominating the sugar game. But look at where it started. On the back of slaves. Free labor. They never talk about that part. No, America, you got blood on your hands. And Domino Sugar, you have made billions of dollars off sugar and slavery. You ever once thought about, hey, let's make this right. This ain't right how we just dominated and we just gonna keep dominating. We ain't atoning for nothing. And check out the irony of this. Slaves, black people, helped to grow that business. Willingly, unwillingly, whatever, right? Just it happened. And black people have the highest rate of what we call got the sugar problem now. Oh, got the sugar is diabetes. Check out the irony in that. Picking sugar, growing sugar will get you killed. And eating it and partaking of the sugar will get you killed. So on both sides, partaking of it will get you killed as a black man. You get my sentiment here? You get the train of thought there? The irony. But yeah, Domino Sugar. And it's not just them. They're just the hostess with the mostest. They got the most clout in the sugar game. We have to go there. We have to look at these things. But see, it's not always about, it starts with awareness. It starts with information. But if you are unwilling to take the information and do something constructive with it, what good is the information? What good is the dialogue? What good is all that energy spent? It will be all for nothing. You've heard the term falling on deaf ears. Well, that's what it feels like in America. This is a nasty, nasty history here. It don't have to remain that way. That doesn't have to continue to be the narrative, though. And I don't mean changing it just because we want to change it. We tired of hearing that part of it. No. The truth. We can change it. It don't have to, the legacy doesn't have to stay nasty, dirty, free labor, poor business practices, slave. It don't have to continue that way because you move it up to today. It's still the same thing. It just won't say slavery. We, the people, we have the power. You can change it. You can help change it. Usher that in. It starts with doing this program that we have here, talking, the dialogue, information. We sharing information. It don't have to remain this way. It doesn't have to continue this, downward trend. It's upward or downward depending on which side of the trend you're on, right? Don't have to be. But think about that. Fatigue might mean losing. That's the conditions. That's how they know you are fatigued. Losing a limb to the grinding rollers or being whipped for failing to keep up. But instead of stalling you out, look, he or she is tired, overtired from this free labor that we're doing. We are literally killing them. He can't keep up. Let's beat him so that he keeps up. But he can't keep up. You see the backwards mentality there? He can't keep up with production. So let's beat him and injure him and harm him. And then he can't keep up because he's injured. And that's the way to solve it. Stupid, silly, deranged, psychotic. But this is America. This has been the history. And that kind of mentality comes up to today with legislation and police brutality. Yeah. And me as a black man, I'm sure I could speak for black people. We love this country. I love this country. I think I'm biased because this is all the country I know, right? But the history of it, we don't like how the country treats us. I don't like how the country is treating me. Enough's enough. Enough's enough. Now, as we close the show and I attempt to land this plane, Thanksgiving truth, TNT. Family, food, drink is an essential part. But so is the truth. Let's dispel these myths. And it's important for us to know what we're being partakers of. So this year, this Thursday, right? Understand how it started, what's real, what's fantasy, and then really, truly, when it's your turn to speak on what I'm thankful for, it will be the realest response you've ever had to that question, past, present, and future of Thanksgiving. Lockdown measures. You know, Michigan started it with this full-on second attempt lockdown 2.0. But it's in New York. New Jersey's gearing up for it. Some of the other states. But it's here, lockdown 2.0. These are the beginnings of it. Limiting indoors, limiting outdoor gatherings. We want you to be prepared. Don't be blind as we were blindsided before. But it is upon us. What can we do? Use what we learned first go round. And it would appear that the proverbial cavalry is on its way. Moderna has a 94.5% effective rate of their vaccine. It's according to them, their trials. But how safe is it? But nonetheless, it's on the way. Pfizer is another one. AstraZeneca, they're hoping, well, really the only holdup right now would be the FDA. So we'll keep an eye on it. We got no choice, right? And it's about censorship. Biased censorship. Twitter and Facebook in court. Do you care about your privacy? How do you feel about them exploiting it and controlling it? It's about their narrative, not necessarily what's true. Will you continue to use Twitter and Facebook with the same thought that you had before this? Or does it change your perspective and even what you post and what you deem as true on those platforms? The last straws. Trump keeps taking these L's now in the courtroom. Philadelphia Supreme Court threw it out. Bottom line is, no rules were broken, and it has turned out to be a Republican witch hunt. Remember, Pennsylvania law requires only that observers be allowed in the room where votes are being counted. There is no minimum distance between them and the counting tables set. PhD murder. What shall we say then? She decided to throw away Najitsky Latassa Dix decided to throw away her PhD aspirations, dreams, and goals, and her job at Notre Dame for murder. Murdering an ex-boyfriend of 3 months, right? This is how we dealing with dejection, heartache. I got one. The word no. This is how we dealing with no in 2020. Kill him. Terminate it. And you know, she's going to be talking about insanity or unfit something because she blacking out. I don't remember what happened. He just can't do people like this. No, you can't do people like this. We'll keep an eye on it. But remember, that relationship was 3 months long. That's it. And it was over in May. Electoral College. Hey, people, we vote, but Americans do not directly elect the president. It's a fact. We elect through popularity and inform the Electoral College to vote a certain way. But the Electoral College selects the president. So the dates to remember, Election Day was November 6th. Electoral votes go to the college. If you have any discrepancies, issues, contests, Trump or Biden would have until December 8th to file those with the courts. And then on December 14th, the Electoral College will usher in and elect the next president. Code word, minority. Minority, a culturally, ethnically, religiously, or racially distinct group that coexists with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. Remember, that would include black people, brown people, men, women, Jews, people with disabilities, pet owners, LGBT, the list goes on. But why in society it only refers to black people in society? And remember, minority status does not necessarily correlate to population, which it was first introduced under the guise of. Gotta watch these code words. And sugar and slavery. Domino Sugar. Remember, that is the largest sugar refinery, makes nearly 2 billion with a B pounds of sugar and sugar products annually. But sugar in this country has a nasty history, and it is heavily intertwined with slavery, free labor, forced labor. You cannot separate them. But that doesn't have to be the entirety of the legacy. We can change it in this country. You can't change the history, but you can change the future by doing something productive for all in the present. The people have the power. But first, America must atone and appreciate and wipe her face. FNXFit.com. Pre and post workout shakes, super greens, and recovery. Moonbeam is the promo code for 15% off your order. FNXFit.com. I've enjoyed the time here with you. I hope that you gained more tonight, this week, this episode. I'm Jay Daniel. This is Moonbeam Radio. I'll see you next week. Take care.